The polls are looking like they're very strongly for us. And no matter where you look, in fact, a lot of states that people thought weren't in play are very strongly in play. Some were actually leading in.
That was Donald Trump in June, when it felt like every poll was trending in his direction. 2 months later, and Kamala Harris's ascent to the top of the Democratic ticket has this race looking like it is in a dead heat. The nonpartisan Cook Political Report is moving Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada from lean Republican to toss-up. CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now. Anthony, thanks so much for being with us.
Great to talk to you, Adriana.
So, Anthony, break it down. What is the current state of the race at this moment?
It's close, in one word. This is what illustrates it. Here's the map. We're going to spend a lot of time with this map over the next couple of months. The states that are in white are the battleground states, and they are all close. They are very close in all of our CBS News estimates. They're close in a lot of other polling as well. They will decide the race, and so that makes the race overall close. For context, Joe Biden, when he was at the top of the ticket, was in fact trailing Donald Trump, in some places substantially. But now there's been this big reset. Now the race is tight with Harris at the top of the ticket. And I just want to show you a little bit of the story of why. First of all, a lot of voters saying in general, over 2/3, saying that they think the country is ready to elect a black woman as president. But I want to show you this as well. Harris has consolidated the Democratic base. She's got 96% of Democrats with her. And that's on the back of an increase in enthusiasm among Democrats. More Democrats saying that they're likely to vote, that they're going to turn out. That's something that wasn't happening as much with Joe Biden, also even with independents. And I'll show you this, too, because we talk a lot about these demographic groups. Harris doing better among black voters than Joe Biden was, a core part of the constituency, so movement there, as well as increased enthusiasm and saying that they're going to turn out. That's the underpinning of the change in the dynamic, Adriana.
Those are really weak spots for Biden. Anthony, what is the larger picture? What's the context that people should keep in mind going forward?
I think it's going to be, number one, watch those battleground states, okay? Number two, watch these enthusiasm numbers if they can sustain, so that among Democrats and including also among Republicans, it's that enthusiasm that leads to express propensity to vote. And that's something that you want to watch because there are so few undecided, so few voters who would even consider the opposing candidate at this point, that turnout really matters. So this boost that we've seen in excitement, in enthusiasm, sustaining that is going to be critical for the Democrats, and it's certainly going to be important for the Republicans to sustain what they've had, Adriana.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much for breaking it all down. And now we have Shelby Talcott and Tom LoBianco here with us. Shelby is a political reporter for Semafor. Tom is the co-founder and national politics reporter for 24 Site News. Thank you both so much. So as we were sitting here getting mic'd up, we heard that Kamala Harris took some questions from reporters and that she actually made reference to the debates at her event in Detroit. Shelby, what do you know?
Yeah, so she confirmed that she's looking forward to debating Donald Trump on September 10th, which is that ABC debate that was previously scheduled, and then Donald Trump sort of pushed back on it once Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So now that seems to be on once again. From my understanding, that is the only official debate out of the 3 that Donald Trump had earlier announced that has been confirmed. So it remains an open question whether both candidates end up agreeing to that Fox News and NBC debate as well.
Great. And I know we do have a tweet also. She tweeted about that September 10th debate. And I imagine, I haven't seen the tweet myself yet, but left out mention of the other 2 more than likely. Yeah, there it is. I hear that Donald Trump has finally committed to debating me on September 10th. I look forward to it. All right. Those are the words from Vice President Harris. Now, let's talk about that Cook Political Report shifting Nevada, Arizona, Georgia toward Harris. Tom, what do you attribute this to, and do you think it'll last?
Re-engagement with younger minority voters, Black and Latinos, especially with men. I mean, this was the demographic that Trump was going after through much of the race. And actually, I just had Gabe Fleischer on over at the 24 Site podcast, and we were talking about this, just posted about whether this is a trend that continues or whether it's a blip. And this gets back to the energy. Is it a honeymoon with Harris, and especially now with Walz, or is it momentum? I gotta be honest, this feels to me like momentum. I mean, the energy at these Kamala Harris rallies is the closest thing I saw would have been Bernie Sanders back in 2016. And it's really astounding. Does that carry past Labor Day? That's the next thing.
Well, also, there's the part of just the runway. This has been a truncated campaign. So while there is momentum, they have less distance to cover, right?
Yes, very. A lot easier. I mean, the sprint that's going on, and in a lot of ways, too, it makes it so much harder for Trump, Vance, and the Republicans to define them. I mean, this is why we saw the amped-up attacks with the quote-unquote stolen valor, the swift boating attacks on Walz, why everything is ramping up so fast. The press conference today from Trump trying to push her into a corner, saying, why aren't you out there doing interviews? The speed, it's hard to overstate just how important the messaging over the last 5 years against Biden was successful. And now that you don't have that, if you're the Republicans, how much of a problem that is.
Yeah, it does feel like we're in fast forward. So, Shelby, you have new reporting on J.D. Vance and those accusations he's made against Walz's military career. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, I spoke to him on his plane yesterday afternoon after a long day of him sort of trailing the vice president in that effort to
Literally
push her,
trailing.
Yes, literally trailing in an effort to push her to speak to the press more and do these press conferences. And he really... he was the first person, I think, on Trump's campaign to officially, loudly make this into a big deal. We had seen tweets from his advisors over the past few days, but he really went full-fledged into this. He argued that it was stolen valor. He argued that Tim Walz has inflated his military record. And he also spoke to me about other things about Tim Walz, about his political record, about whether he is pro-family or not, and his sort of history in his own home state. And he argued to me that there are things that he agrees with him on, like feeding kids in schools, but ultimately some of the other more progressive measures that Tim Walz has taken is dangerous, essentially, to America.
Did anything he pointed out in particular about those family values?
Yeah, so one of the big things was the transgender bills that Tim Walz has signed into law. That has been a really big narrative from Donald Trump's campaign and from Republicans in sort of saying, hey, this is a very progressive vice presidential pick. He is even more lefty than Joe Biden was. So that's one of the things that J.D. Vance harped on in our conversation.
So Harris and Walz have been in Detroit. They met with the UAW. They've been endorsed by their leader. But we still haven't heard from the Teamsters. They typically wait a little longer until both conventions are done. How critical is that endorsement?
Very important it really is very important for the Democrats here, especially because, I mean, look, coming out of Milwaukee, we were all up there. This reshaping of the Republican Party into more of a populist party is built a lot, especially on the blue wall, the Rust Belt states, manufacturing, and trying to eat into that union base. I mean, this is part of the reason why you had Paul Manafort working in 2016 with the campaign, and again now with the campaign. We saw him on the floor in Milwaukee in RNC, working on labor, trying to bring them in. And when Teamsters President Sean O'Brien was up there, I think it was the second day of the convention, he got a really weird reception. It was not a Republican speech. So some of this is brinksmanship with the Democrats, like eventually he'll come home. But you can see an opening for the Republicans to really eat into that base, a traditionally Democratic base.
Thank you both so much. There's so much more we could talk about, but unfortunately, this is only an hour show. Thank you so much, Shelby and Tom, for being with us.
Thank you.